Garrison Keillor tells the story of a man who grew up in a small Midwestern town and ran a public radio station. And he somehow won an award from National Public Radio, and he had to go to New York City and give a speech of acceptance before, obviously, a sophisticated crowd. And so he chose the following as his introductory joke to warm up the audience. In the War of 1812, a certain naval admiral for the United States was in the habit of wearing a red shirt under his coat, so that if he would become injured in battle, his troops would not be able to see the blood and so become alarmed. And now you know why tonight I'm wearing brown pants. Well, of course, that doesn't have anything to do with what I'm about to tell you, because I don't feel nervous up here. I'm among my friends, and I am honored. I'm truly honored, and look forward to a chance just to share with you some memories of a wonderful time in my life, and I trust a wonderful time in yours as well. I'm especially grateful to Bruce Knapp for asking me and for giving me unlimited time tonight. Because I have
you took that upon yourself, Mike.
I have an awful lot that I'd like to say. I'm going to be going back and doing some reminiscing, and I ask your indulgence in that, because I have done my research as best as I could, but some times, some dates, some names may be a little shaky. Please feel free just to shout out your corrections as you feel appropriate. Remember that at this age, Alzheimer's is still a little ways out there, but sometimers is a good possibility. Well, Bruce asked me to talk about what it was like in our senior year, what the days, what the times were like when you're getting ready to graduate from high school. But I thought I'd go back a little bit before that. I wanted to start in 7th grade, when we were first mixed together. And when us kids from Eureka, from that safe haven at Davenport High School, were thrown down into the basement of the high school and mixed in with these kids from Goodfield and Congerville, these interesting folks. We didn't really know what to think about. There was Ron Heinrichsen, whose family picture was bigger than his class picture. There was Pam Grimm, who was rumored to be heir to the Grimm Chevrolet fortune in New York. There was Noel Davis, who was the best athlete in the school and looked mean when he walked in. There was John Knapp, who lived less than a mile down the road from me, and I didn't even know he existed. It was like the Civil War, when the buses came by in the morning, I went north and he went south. There was Rose Nichols, who was rumored to have beaten up every boy in the class and made them cry, with the exception of the aforementioned Noel Davis. And then there was Bruce Knapp, a tall, kind of goofy guy that looked like he had all the potential to be the class clown, with a nickname to match. He went by Gandhi. And so we mixed together, we started getting comfortable with each other, and the next thing that I remember is I came into school one morning, and it seemed like the word had been given out, and everyone had heard it except me, that we were supposed to pair up and form couples and start going steady. Because I walked down the hall, and locker after locker after locker, there were pairs of kids, and they were trading bracelets, and they were trading necklaces, and they were giving rings. They were carrying each other's books. I remember Dave Hirsch and Sue Sheever, Mike Hasty and Chris Miller, Noel Davis and Jan Tracy. And I mean, those are only a few names that I can come up with. You can all fill in the blanks. Everybody was going steady with somebody. There must have been one more boy in the school than girl, because that was me. But we managed to get through those junior high years, and we started to become a cohesive group. And we got to move upstairs to become freshmen. And in freshman year, a guy named Mark White had joined the class, and his claim to fame was that he was Darcy Colley's cousin. But it looked like he might be able to play some football, so that was exciting. But even as freshmen, the class began to show some signs of greatness. Who can forget that Kevin Roque shocked the entire school by winning the lead in the high school play as a freshman, the musical Brigadoon, South Pacific, which meant that he got to kiss Bonnie Acker. And by the last performance, I'd have to say he got pretty good. And I remember the freshman football team, half the class, which were all the guys, came out for the team. And after a couple practices, we lined up against the sophomores for a little scrimmage, and we cleaned their plows. While John McClure, who was our uninvited resident coach, stood on the sidelines and screamed like an insane witch at us. But even at that time, we began to show that there was something special about this class, and that there were some great things that we'd be able to accomplish. We moved on to our sophomore year, and we began to excel in ways that no other sophomore class perhaps had ever done. In the musical Brigadoon, in the play Up the Down Staircase, we literally controlled all of the lead parts in those plays. We had at least 3 first-chair musicians in the band. Pam Grimm was the student council secretary. All the junior varsity cheerleaders were sophomores, and we had starters on several of the varsity teams. We added Beth Spence to our ranks, which was a sign of greatness right there. She began and brought along her big brother Harold to play on the football team. Our junior year, he really ran the place, to be honest about that. In fact, I feel sorry for the class of '72 because we kind of ripped them off. We just basically had 2 senior years in a row. One thing that I do know is that our junior class led the police blotter for the entire year of 1972 from one event, which was Sue Allen's memorable party that she held when her parents were away, which is the greatest part of the whole story. She has a party at her house. And I wasn't even there, but this is the greatest memory I have of something I didn't even see. Because they just, as the night went on and they were talking, the conversation came around to this haunted house out in the country somewhere. And so the idea came up, let's go out, let's visit it, let's go walk to the haunted house. And so everybody got in their cars, and they're carpooling along, and who knows who was giving directions, but apparently they got lost because they ended up at the wrong house. The house of a little old poor lady who didn't know why dozens of cars were pulling out, but had enough energy left in her tired bones to push a dresser up against the front door, which is the only reason that Dave Hirsch could not shut the door open, try as he might. And maybe he got it open enough to look in and see that there was furniture, and this house was definitely not abandoned. Or maybe somebody else said, you know, guys, I don't think this is the right house. But in any event, they decided, we're going to forget this, let's move on. They got back in their cars and headed out. As they came over the hill, lo and behold, there were probably both of the Woodford County Sheriff's cars and all 3 of the Eureka police cars with the big stakeout, you know, shut them down, clear everyone out of the cars, search the cars, search the girls' purses. We're going to find the drugs. We're going to find the guns. I mean, these kids were as clean as a whistle. They didn't even find Don Younger's cigarettes. And so we let them all go. But, I mean, what a class to pull off something like that. And then we moved on to that senior year, when we took the world by storm, or at least we we thought we did. We lost Sue Allen, but we gained Ken Studebaker. And so for at least the basketball team, it was a net gain. Yeah, that net. The football team went 9-0. The basketball team won the county tournament for the second year in a row. We did Oklahoma. We sold candles and cleaning solution. We made the senior trip to St. Louis. And we were already planning on how we would go on and change the world. And that was not an easy thing to do, considering the times that we were growing up in. We were coming out of the turbulent 60s when all authority was questioned and all norms were challenged. It was like all the strings of the necklaces had been broken and all the beads had fallen on the floor, and everyone was just picking them up and stringing them again in whatever order they thought made sense. It was the generation that social scientists would later refer to as the me generation. And it was up to us to try to make some sense out of that and try not to become one of just another self-actualizing, self-focused, self-empowering group of kids that only thought of what they might be able to get for themselves out of life. It was the Nixon White House years. The election in '72 occurred when we were beginning our senior year. And we had already heard that a couple of reporters for the Washington Post had written stories about break-ins in the National Democratic headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. The Watergate event not only changed politics, but it changed the press. And we have grown up and gone on in times when people go into the media expecting to change the world. They're not just going to be reporters. They're going to get the dirt on somebody. They're going to expose someone. They're going to topple a president. They're going to make a name for themselves. And it's changed the way that all of us have to view the news. In 1972, as they do every year, Madame Tussauds House of Wax in Paris conducts a survey of everyone who comes through to look at all the wax figures of the famous people. And they ask them, who is the most beautiful person in the world? Who's the most admired person? In 1972, the most hated and feared person in the world, and this is in order of most listed, was Richard Nixon, Idi Amin, Mao Zedong, Adolf Hitler, and number 5, Satan. It was the year of Roe versus Wade, and the Supreme Court ruled that all first-term abortion laws were unconstitutional. And that's changed everything for a generation of people. It was the year that the Indians seized hostages at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Juan Perón was elected the president of Argentina. And most of us didn't even know anything about him or his wife until the V-Day came out. Syria and Egypt attacked Israel over Yom Kippur. Metal detectors started finding their way into airports because of the number of hijackings. Hair, that was described as the tribal love rock musical, was just ending its Broadway tour. And Bobby Fischer defeated Boris Spassky in the World Chess Championships. And in the process, made a total ass of himself in Reykjavik, Iceland, and gave the entire world an even worse impression of the ugly American. What did we notice about life outside of our community, outside of our high school? We were worried about homework. We were worried about the football game coming up. We were worried about what we were going to do with our lives. Did we notice that in 1973, in an air show in California, a jet trying to take off from a runway that was much too short for its rating just plowed through an interstate highway, took several cars with it, and a tumbling ball of fire into a Bressler's ice cream parlor where there were over 100 kids and parents having 5 birthday parties, and over 25 were killed and more than that injured. That the pilot, who who was not certified for runways that short, but chose that runway to save fuel, was not injured. Does anybody, with the exception of Kent Springer, who read U.S. News and World Report from cover to cover every week, did anybody know that in 1973, a rugby team and its bands in an Air Force jet crashed in the Chilean Andes, and about a third of the people were killed, but two-thirds survived? The search was given up in less than a week, and yet of the survivors, 2 men marched 10 days and nights to receive help. And when they reached help and they returned, they found all the remaining survivors still alive and in remarkably good shape. And when they couldn't understand why and were questioned more fully, admitted cannibalism of the dead. I mean, if these things happen today, all of us would be abuzz with them, but I have to confess, I didn't know that these things were going on until I did the research. I didn't know that J. Edgar Hoover died the year that we were seniors, the first and the only head of the FBI to that point. I didn't know the day after Christmas that President Truman died, the man who gave the order to drop the A-bomb in Hiroshima. But if I were to ask you to finish this sentence, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Try it. You'll like it. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. Those are the commercials that we got exposed to multiple times a day as they were bombarding us. And those things are implanted in our mind, probably to our mental detriment, to this day. The music at the times was changing too. We were moving out of that time frame where all the bands had to choose the weirdest name they could possibly think of. We were no longer, we were listening to, but beginning to fade out of our popular minds, groups like Canned Heat, Iron Butterfly, Pink Floyd, Shocking Blue, Deep Purple, 1910 Fruit Gum Company, Strawberry Alarm Clock, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, Average White Band, Led Zeppelin, Grand Funk Railroad, Mott the Hoople, Three Dog Night, and Commander Cody and the Lost Planet Airmen, which, by the way, was probably the inspiration for Lee and Sue Eling's first child's name. Instead, the musicians began to have names that sounded like names. The Carpenters, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, Elton John, Carly Simon, James Taylor, Jim Croce, Helen Reddy, Gilbert O'Sullivan, sung that mamby-pamby song Alone Again naturally until it descended into the gutter. Diana Ross, Paul Simon, Don McLean, George, Paul, John, and Ringo, of course, because we had lost the Beatles. Cat Stevens, Seals and Crofts, David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Jethro Tull, Uriah Heep. Those were groups, but the group's name was a name. Olivia Newton-John, John Denver, Frank Zappa, the Jackson 5, and other groups with names that were named, Chicago and America. The songs that we listened to really explain to us the generational feeling. I am a woman. If loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. If I could reach you somehow, me and Mrs. Jones, Rocky Mountain High, troglodytes, ooga chaka, ooga ooga. You don't mess around with Jim. The last time ever I saw your face, that was made popular because it was in the movie Play Misty for Me, which everyone went to see Clint Eastwood naked and punch a woman in the face. Alone Again, naturally, I talked about that one. Crocodile Rock, Let's Get It On. Love Train, Muskrat Love. Peaceful, Easy Feeling, Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. Try telling your kids that was a serious song. The Way We Were, You Are the Sunshine of My Life, You're So Vain. And the song that was voted the worst song in all of popular music history by Dave Barry's syndicated readers, MacArthur Park. Lyndon Johnson died the year we were seniors. Pablo Picasso died. David Ben-Gurion, Nikita Khrushchev, Mahalia Jackson. Their lives ended when ours were just beginning. We were watching TV shows like All in the Family, The Waltons, Sanford and Son, Hawaii Five-0, Maude, Kojak, The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, Mary Tyler Moore, Cannon, Gunsmoke, The Wonderful World of Disney, and a show that was becoming very popular, Bridget Loves Bernie, but was canceled because of the objection to the radical content of a Jewish-Catholic marriage relationship. Deep Throat, the pornographic movie that was filmed in 6 days for $40,000, grossed $3.2 million in 1972-73. And the pornographic movie industry was gaining a greater audience and greater acceptance because of the money that could be made in situations like that. There were some firsts that we began to see as we were seniors. The media began to talk about the first woman to do this, to the first black elected to that. There were the first college athletic scholarships offered for women. Pocket calculators were first introduced. The CAT scan was patented. Time Life HBO began selling cable TV subscriptions, and Sears began offering video movie rentals in their stores. Smiley face buttons were the rage. Plastic clacker balls were something few of us could master. 10-speed bicycles, some as light as 22 pounds, were first being sold. And the first radio station in New York City decided to adopt an oldies format for its music. And now some of us don't listen to anything else. It was the days of pet rocks and CB radios. People wearing shirts that said, "Kiss me, I'm Italian, kiss me, I'm Ukrainian, kiss me, I'm Jewish, kiss me, I'm Greek, kiss me, I'm Argentinian." Transcendental meditation was a word we started hearing, and Jesus freaks was a term that applied to some people. Honk if you love Jesus, bumper stickers were on cars. People started talking about acupuncture and health foods. Twiggy and Ralph Nader and Burt Reynolds posed nude in Cosmopolitan magazine. And some people took up jogging. The books that were on the shelves were I'm Okay, You're Okay, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, The Exorcist, The Happy Hooker, Watership Down, and Semi-Tough. Some of the famous quotes from that year were, "I am not a crook." "Peace is at hand. Don't blame me, I'm from Massachusetts." And my father made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Words that were added to the dictionary were body language, gross out, right on, sexism, spin-off, workaholic, hatchback, house sitter, lifestyle, megabyte, open classroom, windsurfing, snowmobiling, and dune buggies. And if you didn't think that the me generation was just around the corner, a few years after high school we would see Billy Carter, Patty Hearst, the Supreme Court pulling the plug on Karen Quinlan, Rocky, Roots, and Star Wars, Charlie's Angels on TV, Sun Yun Moon, a Pulitzer Prize for Doonesbury, the comic, disco and heavy metal, and the first ads for tampons on television. Yet in spite, or maybe because of, the world in which we grew up, we walked across the football field to pomp and circumstance and entered a brand new world. We got our first hot car to go along with our first job. Maybe it was a Datsun 240ZX, metallic silver. We got a job and we moved out we were on our own. Or maybe we went to college for a couple of years, or 4 years, or maybe 6 years, or in Jerry McClellan's case, 14. The realities of life became those things that we could enjoy. Maybe those things that smacked us in the face. There was romance, there was marriage. Sometimes there was divorce. Children came along. We had to trade in the Datsun for a beige minivan. And there was more reality with our kids as they began to grow up and become like us. They began to challenge us. Sometimes they became sick. Sometimes they didn't even get well. You can ask Scott Sankin about that. You can ask Bruce Knapp what that feels like. Sometimes we even had the experience of losing a spouse. I think of Danny Wilson and Connie Connect. Sometimes we began to switch roles with our parents. We became their caregivers. And sometimes some of us have even watched them pass on. Kurt Sparks lost his mom soon out of high school. Pat Genius lost his dad, Daryl Carr, his mom. Scott Sankin lost his dad within the last year, I think. And Lauren Mogler, you lost both your parents in the same year. We began to see how much we are reflected in the lives of our children. Children becoming just like us. And then we realized we're probably a lot like our parents. And that what was special about this class maybe is not so much just the sum of us, but it's the sum of our families and how special they are. They chose to move here or to stay here. They had everything to do with when we were born, that we were all born at the same time and that we came together in this class, and they instilled in us the earliest pride in our community. This was a place to love and be proud of. I know that there are some people who feel that community pride, community competition, Friday night football games are kind of a part of the militaristic 50s that we need to get over. That really one little town is the same as another. And that if you grew up in the Eureka area, it's no different than if you grew up in Roanoke or El Paso or Metamora. To which I say, no, no. And in the case of Metamora, 1,000 times no. I give you this example. Right after high school, a bunch of us guys who were in Peoria for the night. Mark Charlett had driven, a big white beast. And as we were heading back home, somewhere between Peoria and Washington, another car pulled up beside us, full of Metamora red letter jackets. They were honking, they were yelling out the windows, they'd pull in front of us, they'd pull behind us. And Mark did one of the most mature things that I've ever seen a young man of 18 years do. He turned on his turn signal and he pulled into the ICC entrance drive. And as the car zoomed by, he just stopped. He waited 2 minutes and he backed up and we took off. And when we got back to Eureka, we were pulling onto Darrell Carter's street to drop him off, and we had just pulled over when this same car pulled up right behind us and shut off the lights. And I figured, well, this is it. Might as well face him standing. So Kent Springer, and Darrell Carr, and Mark, and Pat Genius, I believe, and I got out of the car and walked back, and this little dweeb of a guy rolled down the window and said, "Excuse me, do you know where we could find any girls around here?" And we said, "No. Try Washington." But nobody is going to tell me that the kids who grow up in a town like that are exactly the same as the ones who grow up in my town. Well, our kids are growing up, and our parents are growing old, and we're starting to change too. Maybe we're getting fitted for reading glasses. Maybe we're getting bifocals. We look in the mirror and we notice white hair and we haven't even been painting. And then one morning we just make a little move, an innocent move, and we feel a pain in one of our fingers, like someone has jabbed a pencil. It's not the honest soreness of hard-working muscles. It just feels like there's not supposed to be a joint here, and I'm trying to do this. And we think to ourselves, so this is what it's like when the warranty runs out on a car. And the minivan becomes a wife's car, and the husband goes out and buys a fire engine red Mazda Miata. The policemen start to look like kids. The bank tellers look like our babysitters. And athletes that are 10 years younger than us are referred to as in the twilight of their career. And we realize we're on one of those long straightaways in the interstate highway of life. And there's no exits for as far as we can see. All our lives, we've been living in certain time frames. Just wait till I get into high school. Just wait till I'm no longer a freshman. That's just next year. Just wait till I can get into college. Just wait till I get out of college. Just wait till I get married. And then we get married. How long does that last? When is the next thing? Some of us experience what's called a midlife crisis at this time in our lives. That inability to accept the reality that despite all of our hopes and dreams and desires, that this is probably about it. This is what we're going to be like 25 years from now, in our 50th high school reunion. And we wonder, is that enough? We haven't made it to the top. We haven't reached our goals. We haven't walked with kings. We thought we were going to change the world, and it appears like we haven't changed the world at all. Or have we? The secret that I think makes a class like this really special, it separates it from a lot of other people, is that we realized that although none of us have cured a disease or invented an amazing product, became a movie or a TV or a rock and roll star or climbed the ladder of political power so that we could turn nations, we could end suffering, we could stop hatred, that each of us has learned that those who change the world change it one person at a time. And we have changed the world. Some of us own our own businesses. I think of Steve Crawford, Steve Scott, Rusty Klaus. Why anyone would look in the yellow pages and call Rusty's Plumbing, I don't know. But it must be working. Gail West, Blossom, Denny Wilson, Beth Spence Rush. Some of us are pastors. Some of us are farmers that run farms that are the equivalent of good-sized businesses. But all of us have the ability, and most of us have experienced the reality of changing the world, at least for one person. The secret that almost everybody who changes the world does it not because of a bank account, not because of the kind of car keys that hang by the back door, not because they can still fit into the jeans they wore in high school, but because they have a special ability to care about someone else and to reach out and do something. I think of someone like Kathy Gerber Kaufman, who takes all those classes of young girls through the nurses training program at Maple Lawn Homes. And sometimes she's teaching them about nursing, and sometimes she's just listening to their problems. Sometimes she's teaching them how to cure with medicine, and sometimes how to cure with a smile or a word or a listening ear. I think of Jerry McClellan, who is a doctor, takes people who come to him on an emergency basis and gives them treatment and also gives them concern and care. I think of Debbie Blunier, who opens the eyes of young kids to see what writers, what great writers of the past were really trying to say with their words and how they can use their words to communicate the thoughts that are deep inside their hearts. I think of Kurt Sparks, who stands in a pulpit and opens God's Word to people on a weekly basis. I think of Beth Spence, who handles people's legal problems, but also handles their life problems, and the compassion and the care that comes out of her heart. When Jeff Scheid takes high school students who feel that nobody loves them or nobody cares, and he introduces them to the one who loves them literally to death. When Gail West writes a song that helps someone worship and helps someone get in touch with the one who can help them with their feelings. When Mark Whited helps college kids move out of their self-focus and into a life that can impact others. When Mike Hasty teaches junior high Sunday school or works as an EMT. When Steve Crawford coaches Little League and Biddy basketball. When Roxy Schertz visits elderly people who look forward to her visits just because it's someone who cares. When Mark Charlett counseled drug rehabilitation programs or coaches Little League. When Ronald Jansen opens her home to encourage junior high kids. When Pam Grimm works for World Relief. When Mary Tate supports missionaries. Every single one is changing the world. And there are many, many more. I've only listed a couple here. Just a few that I could think of. And I don't even live in this town. I don't even rub shoulders with these people. But the work that they've done is that obvious. Noel Davis changed my life. I don't even know if he realizes that. In 7th grade, here I was lost. I was the one odd boy out of a whole class that had paired up boy to girl. Noel Davis was the best athlete in the school. I think it was the first week of 8th grade, as we passed in the hallway, he said, "Hi." Now you have to be in 8th grade, you have to go back to that time to realize what that meant. You didn't say hi to everybody, you said hi to your friends. You said hi to someone who was important to you. And I was not important to Noel Davis. I was the kid who, in 6th grade, George Hackler, the principal, had told me that if I was in his office one more time before the end of 6th grade, that I wouldn't graduate from 6th grade. I was lost in a lost world. But Noel Davis said, "Hi." And I got away by myself before I reacted to it, just so I could take a breath. And after the next class hour was over, I made sure I walked by him again, and this time I said hi. I said hi back. And I began to think that maybe I could be somebody. You never know what one word can do to somebody else. To change them, to change the world. Well, what does it take to be a world changer? A man much, much wiser than I. In fact, he was writing the words of God. He said, the only thing that matters is faith expressing itself in love. And we were always a class of faith. I remember meeting in the morning before class to pray together. I remember the Fire and Life company that we formed. I remember the lock-ins at the Christian church, sitting around in a circle, taking the time to tell everybody individually in that circle that I loved them. And we were always a class of love, a class of caring, of doing, a class of compassion for those who were in trouble. The kind of compassion that Beth Spence evidenced to me while we were playing Inchy Pinchy, Pinchy Winchy in Julie Core's basement. Now I want you to tell the truth. I want to see hands of how many have ever played Inchy Pinchy, Pinchy Winchy. That's what I thought. Because I want to warn you tonight. It's probably too late for you. I mean, the danger is not there for people of our age, but you go home and you tell your kids about this. Because Inchy Pinchy, Pinchy Winchy is a game that people play with someone who is arrogant in their self-supposed intelligence and needs to be humbled. Why Beth played it with me, I don't know. This was not a game just for two people, I want you to know as well. It's a game where we sat around in a circle, and everybody said, oh, let's play Inchy Pinchy Pinchy Winchy. Have you ever played, Mike? No, no. Okay, let's go on down, let's go down. So we sat around in a circle, and it's one of those games where everyone knows what's going on except one person. And it is the object of the person who doesn't know what's going on to figure it out. Game for an intelligent person, for a receptive person, for a discerning person. I figured I was a natural. And the first person started out. He turned to his right, and to the person there, he said, Inchy Pinchy. And he gave her a little pinch on the cheek. And she turned to the person on her right and said, Pinchy Winchy, and gave him a little tweak on the nose. And so it went from person to person, to Beth, to me, and then I started it again. And I thought to myself, if you say Inchy Pinchy, are you supposed to go to the right? If you say Pinchy Winchy, should you go from the nose to the back? But I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to watch carefully what they do. And it went around 5 times, 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. I don't really know. I didn't have a clue. But I was going to figure it out. And finally, Beth Spence had compassion on me. Because completely without my knowledge, she had an open lipstick in her hand and was rubbing her 2 little fingers on it. And every time she went, Pinchy Winchy, to me, I was getting another red spot. On my cheek, on my chin, on my side, on my ear. I probably looked like I was breaking out in scarlet fever. And if she had to have stopped it somehow, I probably might still be in Julie Court's basement tonight. So Beth had to do something, and she had to break the tension. She couldn't just stop the game. She had to let me learn my lesson. And she couldn't just tell the other kids, you're being mean, let's stop this. So she just broke out laughing and said, I'm sorry, I can't take it anymore. Go look in the mirror. And at that point, I really understood the meaning of compassion. And that's what it takes to be a world changer, and that's why I think this class is such a special class, and that's why I'm so proud to be a part of it. I want to say one more thing that came to mind as I was driving down here this evening, knowing that I was going to have a chance to talk to you all. Just a couple days ago, we all heard that Swiss Air Flight 111 had about 15 minutes notice before it went down off the coast of Nova Scotia and everyone aboard was killed. Of course, those who report this ask the old question, is it better to have known, to have had 15 minutes to prepare? Or should they have said nothing and just hoped, or let the people experience what they experienced? I certainly would have wanted to know. I would have wanted to have a chance to turn to those around me and say, I love you. Goodbye. I'd also want a chance to say to everyone, if we die, I know where I'm going. Won't you please come with me? See, none of us know that we're going to be here in 5 years. I don't know that I'm ever going to see you again. But I'd like to say that you're special to me, and I love you. Please come with me. If you were on that plane and you don't know where you would be going, please talk to someone who does. Talk to me. Talk to one of your friends who you know has that kind of faith. Please come with me. And now I would like to end this series of remarks in the most appropriate way I feel possible. I'm going to ask you in a minute to stand up and join with me in singing that song that we really did a terrible job of out in the football field. But maybe that's because we were caught unawares and we hadn't really had a chance to think about it. But everyone who has graduated from the class of 1973 and everyone else who graduated from Eureka High School will be invited to stand and join in the singing of the school song, accompanied by an excellent band that I just happen to have a recording of with me from the class of 1971. I'd like to say something to you that I've seen on so many t-shirts every time I've been together with high school graduating classes, so it makes me sick. But in this case, I feel it's only appropriate. I would like to raise a glass to a class with class. To the graduating class of 1973. Thank you for being special. Thank you for having faith. Thank you for loving. Thank you for changing my world. Let's all stand. Hit it, Dean. Eureka! All right.
I didn't teach anything very, very long, but it was a very, very good experience. My first job here was to cast the musical Oklahoma, and to come into a school where I didn't know anybody, and to try to choose a cast with somebody with a job. When I finished casting that, Bob Allen, who was the manager at that time, looked at the cast and he said, well, I think you chose the right people. And I think we proved that we did. It was an excellent performance. I did bring along with me, if you'd like to look, this is the program of Oklahoma. This is 25 years old. One of the nice things about this was that when we did the musicals, that Bill O'Toole always did our programs for us. So we just took the material to him and he did it, and he did a fine job. I'd never heard the whole story about what happened at the party in 1972. I just was warned that if we had a cast party after Oklahoma, that we had to let the police know where we were, and what time we were going to wrap up and all that sort of thing. I never knew the real story, so thank you. That something happened, but I never knew quite what it was. Well, anyway, one of the next things that we did was choose the modulations. We started modulations that year. I'd like for everybody who was in modulations that to stand up.
All right, Mark. All right.
And if you'd like to compare, I have a picture. So come around afterwards, I'll show you a picture and see what these people look like. I didn't recognize Rossi. So if I snubbed you, Rossi, I'm sorry. The next big thing that we did, I guess, was that fall, we did the Messiah. And I just counted out, I have an old program of the Messiah, and we had 130-some singers in that, in the high school. Now, the high school was about 500 kids, that's a pretty good percentage of people. Debbie Blues was one of our accompanist, by the way. And so her name appears in the program, and so probably does yours. Everybody who sang the Messiah, would you please stand up?
All right.
Pretty good group. Okay, and then, of course, singing the Messiah was a little bit taxing, so my son, Ken, who couldn't be here tonight, wrote a limerick about it and put it on a plaque, and I put it up in the course. And this is what it says. It says, "Screaming tenor." This is dedicated to the tenor. It says, "Once while singing Handel's Messiah, I sat by a big burly Gaia, who fell back in his chair and sat in a cold stare. I guess tenor was way too high." And this hung in the chorus room for a long time. Some of you may remember that. It was a great class, and I have many fond memories of you people, and you were a great group to work with.
Remembering.
That's probably to our advantage tonight.
Yours anyway.
What I wanted to say, and Mike stole it all. Stole a whole lot more than I was going to say, but it takes more than teachers and you to make school. It also takes parents. Mike referred to them very well tonight. I think I can remember when I was 18, I was going to do some things different than my parents. Then I think after 25 years, I realized I was more like them than I ever thought I would be. And then as they get older, it even gets more so. And yes, we do go through the phase where you get your kids raised and you get to raise your parents if you're fortunate enough to still have them. That's well stated. Most important, it's just great to see you all. Thank you so much for including us.
My one regret would be that I'm like Paul. I started when you guys were seniors. I got to work with the track program. I got to work with the football program. That's what I remember the most. Like Leatherman and McClellan running distances and doing a good job in track. And I'm glad I found out how or why Donnie Younger, when he was in the sprints, every time he ran a sprint, he pulled a muscle. Now I know why. He didn't have enough oxygen. But the track program, it was a special time for me. The track program today, I think, because of you guys, is what it is today, and it's really a strong program today. My daughter is in cross country right now as a freshman, and she started in the cross country boys at Washington in their first meet. They placed 10 people ahead of any Washington finisher, and we had 3 girls placed before any Washington finisher, and Washington's supposed to be a good AA program. So you guys are kind of the grandfathers of those programs, and that's neat to see that go on. I've had a kind of a special situation because I grew up in this town and I came back to teach here, and there's, you know, with all this white hair, there's a period of time in there where I can't remember whether I went to school with the people or whether you guys were the first guys I had in school, or, you know, exactly where I started teaching. But a lot of faces run together, but it's neat to be here and be in a situation where I've gotten to live here most of my life. And you were a neat class. I remember the football. It's too bad in '72 that you guys didn't have a state playoff. I've always said that if you guys would have had a state playoff, you would have won the state that year. I don't think there's any question in my mind that because of the way you played football and the way you ran over Matamore and Morton and the other teams, there was just no question. If there would have been a playoff, instead of starting at 74, if they started at 72, you guys would have won. There would have been a state football championship in Eureka now. I remember seeing Noel run, and he was always exciting to watch, and I always felt like, you know, he must have weighed 145 pounds soaking wet, but he ran like a truck, and it was just amazing. And one thing that was neat, though, he always weighed 145 pounds on game night because I think you guys played in 9 rainy nights or 7 or something like that. So he did have a little extra weight. But And I remember I was going to pick on somebody, and they're not here, and I don't know whether to do it or not, but I guess I'll just mention it, and you can guess who it was maybe. But you had a real big lineman that he was a heck of a man at that age. I mean, he was a baby, really, but he was a man size-wise, and I heard what he was going into, and I just happened to shake hands with him one time, and he had the whippiest handshake I've ever felt. I remember taking him off the side and telling him, you know, if you're going into that field, I think you need to, you know, figure out how to shake hands with somebody when you meet him. And I was hoping he was going to be here tonight to shake hands with him, but maybe some other time. But like I said, I enjoyed the 1 year I got to spend at least with some of the athletics, and you are a neat group. Thanks.
I've been reminiscing a lot since I've gotten here, and listening to Mike too. And you know, you talk about somebody changing a person's life. One of the things I remember, and I believe this was in the 8th grade, which was my first year with you all. We were in a class with Mr. Simmons. And, well, I don't remember what was taking place exactly at that time in class, but I may have given an answer to a question. Anyway, I apparently didn't speak too loud. And so Mr. Simmons, he says, "Oh, you're quiet as a mouse." Well, then I hear Bruce Knapp. Over beside me, he says, "Oh, mouse." How many of you remember calling me mouse? Okay. Now, I didn't find that on the name tag, so I think I'm going to add that here to the name tag. I feel like there's just a big void here. Okay. Now, just so you don't forget, you know, if you forget my real name, at least you can call me mine. In all seriousness, though, I do think we had a great class. I can remember feeling a sense of pride, and by the time that I had reached my senior year, I considered my senior year the best year all through school, and I enjoyed being in class with you all, and I enjoyed looking through the book a little bit and kind of catching up on some of you. And also, you know, there's a lot of us. I've even made some remarks tonight. There are a lot of us who live in this immediate area. Some I rarely see or never see. But tonight it's been good to be together. And one more thing. I got to pick on Mike a little bit. Mike was the person who, or at least one of the people who kept me humble in school. You know, I was such a little guy, and Mike was so tall. Every once in a while, he just couldn't resist the urge to grab around my waist and pick me up, maybe carry me upside down. But it was all in fun. Like I said, he kept me home. And Mike, I really enjoyed your talk with us tonight. It's great.
Spoke to a lot of people, so don't mind my face turns a little red here. Yeah. Well, there is someone here tonight that has changed my life in the long run, and I'm hoping that I still keep it up. Back when I was a freshman, I was one of those guys who was out for the football team, and well, I didn't play very much. I was only about mouse size. Okay, so I figured, well, I'm going to forget about football and next year, and I'm going to take over Mike's position since he's a wrestler now, and I'm going to play basketball. Okay, well, I was going to go that fall, following fall, and shoot baskets at my home and everything, and get ready for the basketball season. But you know what? Mr. Logston was our sophomore basketball coach, and guess what else he coached? Cross country. So Mr. Logston, it wasn't just me. You got me, I believe Dean, Denny Wilson, for the cross country team because we were going to play basketball tomorrow. And so I naturally had to run cross country. And for me, I think it kind of turned my life around. I didn't realize it at the time, but after graduation from high school and got out of college, there was something missing. Well, not around the belly anymore. So I started running, and I kind of believe it all came from Mr. Logston. Got me out to run and keep in shape. I think it was part of Mike's talk. Some people turned it into joggers. So I would like to thank Mr. Logston for at least help keeping my shape.
No, not me. They say the memory's the second thing to go. I just had a baby 3 weeks ago, and I can't remember. Going through the high school was so neat today. I just had so many memories, and now I can't think of all of them, but I had several things. One person here tonight, I wanted to ask if they've forgiven me after 25 years of Coach Logston. Because I don't know if you remember this, but I had just got my license as a sophomore, and I was asked to come into the music room where Miss Sanborn could work on her solos and for the musical. And I had just got my license, and this was back before they put lighting back there behind the gym. And so I parked my dad's car right next to yours. You had taken the basketball team to Urbana or something for some state tournament, and they left on a bus. And I was pulling out after my rehearsal, and I turned my wheel too soon. And I crashed into your car. You know. I thought, I had the radio on. And so I was backing up, and I thought, I think I turned too soon. I think I did something. And there was no lights back there. I couldn't see a thing. So I went uptown to the courthouse, and I got under a street light, and I thought, there's nothing wrong with my dad's car. So I went home, and I didn't say a thing. And the next morning, I was in biology class, and Mr.
Savage.
So I asked Miss Sanborn, who was here for rehearsals last night, do you know anything about Coach Logston? Oh, it was me. I didn't know it was me. I said it was me. It had to be me, but I didn't know it was me. I said, I told him no. So anyway, my dad made me, I think accents were pretty cheap back then. I had to pay about $68 out of my allowance for Mary Sanders.
That's an old yellow car I
I
had.
don't know what high school was so fun. I can remember in 8th grade where we were down in the lower level, like Mike was talking about, and the senior or the upper class, and changed classes right around that stairway. And I thought, I just can't wait to get in high school. And it was great. I loved every year. And Mike's right. He said we had like 2 senior years. I think we had 3. Because first year we didn't know what was going on as freshmen. But you know, sophomore year, I remember we won everything. We won the float competition. I mean, by the time our sophomore year rolled around, we were great at everything. Except remembering things. Anyway, high school was great, and Noel Davis changed my life too. freshman or sophomore year when she was there. And my family rode a bus, although we just lived barely out of city limits. My parents paid for us to ride the bus to school. And we were always running late, and so somebody would stand outside and wait for the bus was coming over the hill, and they'd yell, "Bus!" And we'd run outside and try to catch the bus down our driveway. And in running out my front door, I tripped and fell on the steps and tore my hose and a scab at my knee. And you called me scabby knees. Scabby knees. Scab legs. In English class, but I had to just take it as a compliment. I really He noticed. No, and the other thing I just want to close with is, you know, a lot of people say your college friends are your friends for life, but I really feel like my high school friends are, because, I mean, of course I'll spoke to my college friends, but when I think back the number of years, I think on these years, and just how close this place was, how wonderful it was, and I have fond memories of Eureka. I've been in Texas for 20 years, and it's amazing. You're part of a family, it's so special, and I just want to encourage you, if you moved away, to call somebody who lives in town at Christmas time or any other event and say, hey, let's get a group together. Because several of us girls have done that, and it's just been wonderful. Because people trust that and they do it.
That's right.
All right.
I don't want to be fine.
Well, they might hear you better than that.
If it's about Kenny, we got to hear this.
Well, I think Gail is the one who brought it to my mind, because you made comments about parents and being fortunate enough to have them with you. But I have to say that, and I'll try not to cry, that children mean so much to us, and you remember the things that happened when they were home, and the laughter of their voices. And I can remember very late at night, Dad and I would have gone to bed, and we'd hear this laughter out in the family room. Children who've come after something that's gone on at school or at church, and they've come to make pizza or whatever they were going to do, and they're laughing, and we don't care. We know where they are. They're having a good time. And about 2 or 3 o'clock, the phone rings. Hello? Is my daughter there? Oh, yes, she is. We'll send her right home. And so Gail would be one of them. And they would find out that Gail was still there. We knew she was still there. We could hear her laugh.
Dear Dean, thank you for the invitation to the Class of 73 reunion. I'm very sorry I'll not be able to attend. I'll be at O'Fallon on September 4, helping my daughter move. This is the same little girl that was born on July 15, 1972. Do you remember her? She's now a speech and language pathologist. I did want to mention a few of my memories of the Class of 73. As you know, this was my first year at Eureka High School and first teaching experience. Thank you for being patient with me. I have so many wonderful memories about the students of the Class of 73, and I'm fortunate I still have an opportunity to talk with many of those students and their children as they attend Eureka Middle School. Of course, I remember the great football season and all the players. I still see Noel Davis, Darcy Colley from time to time, and remember the hard running they did on the field. I also remember the many hours I saw Darrell Carr, Pat Genius, and Ken Springer lifting on the Universal Gym. I remember seeing Ken Springer doing bench presses with Darrell Carr stamping on the bar in addition to the weight, and appreciated their hard work. I can still see the quickness of Don Younger, the quarterback skills of Mark White as they performed. I remember the fullback play of Dave Hirsch and the joy in his father's eyes as he ran. I remember the play of Mike Lopata, Mike Hasty, Ken Collins, who had a bad handshake, Myron
We had that figured out.
There's collaborating testimony. And the red hair of Mike Hartman. I can still see Mike Hartman pulling down the line for a trap block and Darrell Carr in the pregame hitting drills. I remember the musical Oklahoma and how I wished my daughter would have the opportunity to participate in a similar program. I recall so many wonderful people from the Class of 73 and many talents. course, I remember the wrestling team and being sent to Bloomington High School, the district, and competition and important invitational. I have many wonderful memories about the wrestlers and our visit to Champaign during the state wrestling tournament. I remember my first and only Accounting 2 student, Pam Grimm-Wigan, that year, wondering how I was going to teach Accounting 1 and Accounting 2 at the same time. Thank goodness for good students. I remember the running ability of David Leatherman and the physical basketball play of Dean Rickey and his teammates. I still see many of the students of the class of '73 walking the halls in my memories. I can hear the laughter of Beth, Spence Brush, and her many friends. I will not forget you, and will always appreciate having the opportunity to spend some time with you at EHS. And I wish you all well. God bless Ed Steinbeck. And by his signature is a smiley face. Can I say one more thing? I took all
No.
the time in the world. Here's almost everybody in our class. And people have stood up and said, you know, so-and-so, you changed my life, so-and-so, I'm sorry I hit your car, I'm sorry. Thank you, I forgive you, whatever. Is there somebody that you would like to say thank you to? Is there someone that you need to apologize to? There's somebody in here I need to apologize to, and I'm going to give them a call. Their phone numbers, their things in here. Take an opportunity. Write somebody a letter or give them a call. Tell them that you appreciate them.
And I really enjoyed being part of this class. I love every one of you, and I mean that. And let's keep it close. You know, I've often heard at school events and other things from teachers that we had a special class, even not very long ago. The class of 1973 is something special. And I really believe that. And I know you do too. And I feel honored to be a part of this class, very much so. And it's because of many things that Mike shared tonight that we care for one another. Whether we agree with one another on everything, nobody does. But we care for one another, and we share with one another, and we love one another. As Mike said, and as we've heard, let's share that with our children and share it wherever we go. Because it's not about money or jobs. It's about caring and loving.
Yeah.